No sooner had the Netherlands tightened controls than Turkey blocked investments, Germany dug up old grievances, and China quietly shifted its export approvals for gallium and graphite from annual reviews to case-by-case scrutiny. In this round of strategic maneuvering, none of the players laid their cards on the table outright, yet each move struck at the opponent's vital points. The global semiconductor chessboard has evolved from overt competition to covert maneuvering. No one is shouting sanctions or publicly calling for blockades, yet each move is as precise as a surgical operation, not a single cut too many, not a single cut too few. The Netherlands restricted equipment exports, and Turkey immediately halted investments. Germany suddenly dug up old grievances, while China said nothing, merely quietly upgrading its export approval system for gallium and graphite. On the surface, the waters appear calm, yet each step treads precisely on the other's nerves. The global semiconductor industry is undergoing a restructuring without gunpowder. The focal point of this covert battle has fallen upon Nexperia. It is neither Apple, TSMC, nor Nvidia, yet it has become the convergence point for the tug-of-war between China, the U.S., and Europe. Nexperia is in fact a long-established European firm headquartered in the Netherlands, though acquired several years ago by China's Wingitech Technology. Since then, it has been under Western scrutiny as a potential conduit for technology leakage. Despite continuing to operate, pay taxes and employ staff in Europe, its Chinese capital backing has sparked unease across multiple nations. The Netherlands took the lead, directing its export controls specifically at Nexperia. They claimed these were single-use items, but in reality they were critical chip manufacturing equipment like ion implanters, which require strict export controls. This was not merely a routine commercial restriction, but a precise breakpoint attack on the supply chain. Simultaneously, Germany suddenly reopened a 3-year-old case. 3 years prior, when Nexperia was acquired by Wingitech Technology, Germany had signaled approval. Now, however, it accused Nexperia of conducting unauthorized production line upgrades without permission, demanding a re-examination of the deal and even a potential equity split. This is akin to being asked to re-register a marriage after 3 years, only to be told you must change your spouse. Even more unexpectedly, Turkey, a nation rarely seen in the semiconductor arena, has also erected barriers for Nexperia. Nexperia planned to build a wafer fab in Turkey, but construction was halted by Turkish authorities on grounds of high strategic national sensitivity shortly after commencement. Faced with this Western combination punch, China has refrained from high-profile responses or formal appeals. Instead, it has quietly adjusted export approval procedures for critical materials like gallium, germanium, and high-purity graphite, shifting from annual reviews to case-by-case scrutiny. At first glance, this may seem insignificant. Yet for factories heavily reliant on Chinese supplies, it is akin to switching from an automatic water tap to a manual one. Each transaction now requires at least 20 days of approval processing. Who would dare maintain inventory with such uncertainty? This is particularly acute for facilities like Nexperia's UK plant, where 70% of its gallium feedstock relies on Chinese imports. The new regulations immediately place them at risk of supply disruption. This approach proves more sophisticated than outright embargoes. Embargoes risk escalating tensions and fueling confrontation, whereas transaction-by-transaction scrutiny merely amplifies uncertainty and time costs. It doesn't block the flow, but it prevents you from feeling secure. This flexible ambiguity has become a significant covert advantage for China in the global supply chain game. Currently, China accounts for over 80% of global gallium production. Should China truly tighten the valve, no alternative source could fill the gap. Though Japan and the United States are accelerating efforts to develop substitute capacities, they cannot bridge the shortfall in the near term. Faced with external pressure, China has not adopted a passive defensive stance, but has instead accelerated the pace of domestic substitution. This is not mere rhetoric but substantial investment backed by real capital. Domestic manufacturers including BYD, China Resources Microelectronics, and Ceylon Gallium have recently announced large-scale expansion plans totaling over 28 billion yuan in investment. Their objective is clear: to raise the domestic production rate of semiconductor equipment from the current 25% to 60% within 3 years. From electric vehicles to industrial control systems, from mobile phone chips to high-end military applications, China's semiconductor ecosystem is rapidly catching up. China does not seek to immediately replace established players like Infineon and Bosch, but rather to ensure it is no longer constrained in critical areas. Only when you possess a backup plan can others hesitate to cut off supplies. The objective of this contest has never been to defeat anyone, but to build a system impervious to blockade, rendering adversaries' attempts at isolation futile. That is the true victory. The question now is whether the global semiconductor industry can revert to its former state of interdependence, where you are in me and I am in you. Over the past few decades, the global chip industry functioned like a jigsaw puzzle, with each piece specializing. America excelled in design, Japan supplied materials, South Korea handled storage, and China focused on packaging and manufacturing. But now, nations have realized that placing their necks in someone else's hands is a perilous proposition. The U.S. has poured hundreds of billions of dollars into its CHIPS Act. Japan has revived its national semiconductor materials strategy, the EU has unveiled its CHIPS Act 2.0, and even India has proclaimed its ambition to become the next semiconductor hub. This is not decoupling, but rather each nation establishing contingency plans, as no one wishes to remain wholly dependent on others. Yet semiconductors are not tofu. Pouring money in does not instantly boost production capacity. Technology, talent, processes, equipment, each link demands accumulated time. In the short term, nations cannot entirely sever mutual dependencies. Yet the true shift lies in the future semiconductor industry no longer being a single global chain, but multiple chains operating in parallel. It resembles a game of chess, once Go where players vied for territory, now Xiangqi where each guards their own domain, mutually restraining. Whoever first masters their own board will seize the initiative for the next decade. The Netherlands restricts exports through regulations, Germany reopens old accounts via scrutiny, Turkey leverages geopolitics to block investments. China, however, controls the rhythm of global supply chains through raw materials. This is not a fight, but a game of chess. Only this game has no referee nor a pause button.